I don't require all of you to blow up my screen like what Jinkai is doing. Okay, because I will be doing some recording. Okay, so I'll just do a quick recap. Okay, can anybody tell me what have we covered last week? Type it up. Okay, last week we went through plier, right? Remember? I still remember this plier thingy, man. Okay, this plier brings back memory of my extraction of my wisdom tooth. So scary, right? Imagine it is a tooth down here, and not a gem. Have y'all got your wisdom tooth extracted? Better soon, man, soon. If not, it's going to create a problem somehow or other. I suggest during the national service days to extract that. But anyways, okay, my job here is not to talk about national service. Now, okay, quickly illustrate. Okay, what are some of the policies we have covered last week? What did we cover last week? Wait, which alphabet did we cover last week? To be more specific, which alphabet was covered last week? P-L-I-E-R. Okay, today I'm here to do a recap. Okay, and after that we are going off for a lecture test already. Like it or not, okay, lecture test is going to happen. Okay, so okay, we covered in depth, okay, tradable permits, right? Okay, and indirect tax. So later on in your lecture test, this tool will be tested. It will be tested. Okay, so please, okay, stay with me. Okay, I'm going to do a thorough recap, okay, on tradable permits and indirect tax. Okay, so everyone, okay, I will just use the materials last week. Okay, so last week we actually covered these, yeah? Where was it? This one. Okay, I believe most of you should have taken down notes. If you haven't, okay, this is what you will be using later. And later on, okay, during the lecture test, please no notes, Okay, do it with integrity. Otherwise, good luck for you in your national exams. So for indirect tax, I'm looking out for number one, okay, whether is it production or consumption-based negative externalities. Okay, so to now, I still have students who cannot differentiate between the two. So context is king, Okay, you have to identify from the context. Okay, is it a production or a consumption-based negative externalities? And you see that most of the step is the same. Okay, so I will just cover this one more time. Okay, so things that cannot be missed out. First of all, an estimation of the external cost. Okay, so the government will impose an indirect tax that is equal to the external cost. How much is the external cost? The external cost is the amount of the vertical distance at your QP. Okay, that is the external cost. Okay, so please make sure this particular sentence is in your answer later. Okay, next, okay, indirect tax is going to drive up production costs. Okay, when it's more costly to produce, okay, what's going to happen next? Producers will be affected, right? Okay, so I want you to look out on the left side. The left side is significantly easier. You can see that when producers incur a higher production cost, they will internalize the marginal external cost and cut their production to the socially optimal level, QS. Straightforward. If it's a consumption-based negative externalities, then you need to bring in consumer, right? Okay, so how are you going to connect producers and consumer? Then you need to relate to what? Okay, the producers passing off the higher costs to consumers. So cost of consumption is going to go up. And this will cause the consumers to internalize the marginal external cost. Okay, and cut your consumption to the socially optimal level. And one more thing, okay, later on will be a lecture test. If you don't turn in, it's actually fine. Okay, so in your remark, I will put, okay, candidate did not turn in. You answer to your own parent, Okay, especially for students who don't turn in. Can? For my second year students and private candidate students, okay, I won't be giving you a full report on your lecture test. I will just be grading that. Okay, because this is just a revision for all of you. Clear? Okay, so having said that, okay, make sure you're able to distinguish. Step 3 is going to differ from production and consumption. Make sure you have a diagram to support. Okay, indirect tax must use direct diagram one. Okay, I've never seen anyone who get away without using a diagram. Huh? Okay, and make sure you're also familiar with the limitations. Okay, last week we covered the constraints and the unintended consequence, right? So by far the MVP is the constraint. Okay, so I'll just go and cover this one more time. Okay, just do a quick recap. Okay, so for constraints, you'll want to look out for what? Okay, the ability for the government to estimate the external cost, right? So estimating the level of external cost is just, okay, an estimation. Okay, we assume the government to be right. What happens if the government is not right? What happens if the government overestimates the external cost? Okay, you can see it evidently in the blue gap here. Estimate too high, how? Then this will cause your MPC curve to shift significantly to the left side and will cause significant underproduction or underconsumption. Depends, okay, whether is it consumption or production externality. And you also want to emphasize on this. Okay, this you want to show that this is a bigger deadweight loss. The blue is bigger than the red. Okay, this is a form of government failure. Okay, when the government overestimates the external cost by a huge margin. Or underestimation is also no good. Okay, if you underestimate, okay, possibly by the black gap down here. Okay, the most optimal amount is the orange gap, most optimal amount. Okay, but if you estimate too little, then you cannot fix the problem. Okay, there will still be some level of there will still be some level of overproduction or consumption. Okay, so focus on this. I've covered the rest already. I won't be covering the rest today. Okay, so constraints, okay, is one of the things that you often use. Okay, so I also refer to some of your soil submission that you turned in recently. Okay, the part about tradable permits, okay, wasn't really well explained. Okay, so I will just want to touch on tradable permits one more time. Okay, so for tradable permits, okay, make sure you also have a diagram. Some schools use diagrams, some schools don't. Okay, but when I look at some of your answers, okay, I'm particularly confused because number one, I don't see a clear framework or structure. So I'm going to give you one more time how are we going to approach tradable permits question. First of all, okay, we need to know the role of the government here. Okay, the role of the government, unlike the earlier question, imposes a tax, right? Now, the role of the government, okay, they issue permits. How much permits do they issue? How much exactly? Please take down notes. Okay, they will make an estimation on what is the socially optimal level of emission. Okay, and they will grant permits. Okay, so for permits, you can actually see that there's going to be a buy and sell. Okay, so when government grants the permits, so I forgot to mention last week. Okay, so one of the revenues of government, avenues for government to raise revenues, okay, one of them is through tax. That's very clear cut. You can see that tax itself is actually a pretty good policy. Why? Okay, because tax revenue can be collected, okay, and it can be used to fund something else. Okay, it's a pretty decent policy as compared to all the other rest of the plier. Okay, so for tradable permits, okay, I don't want to confuse things. Okay, we normally assume that tradable permits, okay, there is no cost for government to grant to the producers. Okay, so sometimes the tradable permits can be sold to firms, okay, at a flat rate. Okay, so different countries have different approaches on how they want to, how they want to distribute the tradable permits. Let's assume that it's free here. Let's assume it's free here. So things that you want to focus on when you bring about tradable permits, okay, it will be tested later, is to distinguish between clean and dirty firms. So when I look at your script, I'm particularly confused. None of you tell me, okay, what is the profile of clean and dirty firms? All of you use the firm. The firm. How will I know what is the firm referring to? Okay, so make sure you split them up. There are two types of firms. Firms that don't need access permits. These are the ones that are cleaner in production. Because of their means of cleaner in production, do me a favor, turn off your WhatsApp if you have. I've turned off mine. Okay, I'm going to turn off mine. Okay, so let's stay focused. Later there's an exam coming up. Okay, so firms that don't need permits, okay, they don't need excessive permits, they will have the incentive to sell it for profit. So this is the incentive. Okay, incentivizes firms to adopt cleaner production means and stay clean. Okay, for firms that are dirty, what do we do? Then in that case, you can see that okay, firms they are relatively inefficient. They are in need for more permits. Okay, in need for more permits, Okay, and when they're in need for more permits, what do? Okay, they'll have to buy permits from the clean firms. Okay, when they buy permits from the clean firms, okay, this will reduce. Okay, give me a second. Okay, when they buy permits from the clean firms, there must be a key assumption. The assumption that is, okay, buying permits is cheaper, okay, than adopting cleaner production means. Otherwise, they won't do that. Okay, otherwise they might as well adopt cleaner production means or they close shop. Both of them are equally costly. Okay, thanks. If my head is ever blocking, let me know. Maybe I swap to a smaller head mode. Does it work? Smaller head mode. Small head mode. I do have a big head. For some strange reason, my head is bigger. My mom usually called me an airhead when I was young. Don't know what's inside though. But anyway, okay, so things to mention. Okay, you have to relate this to production cost, COP. Okay, so this is the illustration down here is exactly the same as indirect tax. Exactly the same. Okay, exactly the same. Okay, step 2 and step 3. And this only works for dirty firms. Clean firms are not penalized. Okay, so dirty firms will have to incur a higher cost of production for buying extra permits and internalize the external costs. So please avoid telling me the firm, right? How would I know which firm? It's like the accountant, the auditor, which one, right? So many, right? Okay, and make sure you're able to list the constraints. Okay, the constraints is similar to what we have seen earlier on. Okay, look out for clues. Okay, on what is the best level of permits to issue. Right? Remember, government is not God. Right? Government can only make estimation. I would say that Singapore government is nearly quite godly, right? Okay, they make a lot of really accurate, precise estimation, but not all governments are the same. So what happens if you issue too much permits? Okay, the basis of issuing too much permits is because you estimate that there's too much external cost, right? Okay, then in that case, okay, it's going to suppress the level of price of permits. Okay, and when you're going to suppress the price of permits, what's going to happen? Okay, this will weaken the incentive to adopt cleaner production means. Okay, if it's cheaper, I always buy permits, right? Just cheap. It's just maybe 5 cents, 10 cents more than I buy permits. Pollute. Okay, weakens the incentive to pollute, to cut pollution. If I issue too little permits, then how? If I issue too little permits, this will drive up the price of permits. Because the clean firms also need permits to pollute. It doesn't mean that they don't need anything, right? Okay, just that they are going to sell the excess. If there's too little permits to be circulated, price will go up. Okay, this will lead to unprofitability and potentially consequences for firms. They close shop, and this will lead to unemployment. Okay, so whichever it is, make sure you're able to distinguish between the economic agents involved. Clear? So I'm going through P and I. So I'm going to go through the remaining L, E, R. Okay, so listen carefully. L, E, R, okay, is a little bit, especially L is the hardest. So from an exam perspective, especially for my first year students, tax and permits will be more likely tested together with regulation. Regulation is not hard. Okay, so if you proceed beyond your first year, that's if you proceed beyond your first year, then you will be exposed or you'll see more insidious question, which I'm going to show you in a short while. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Please take down notes because it's not in the book. So I'm going to go on to the next alphabet. The next alphabet is license and quota. Okay, so license and quota can be briefly broken down into two halves. Okay, I'm not sure whether I covered this last week, okay, but I'm just going to go in one more time. Okay, so license and quota, you can see that as a complete ban, zero quota. Or you can grant some form of quota. Quota can be fixed in the form of a license. So the key difference between these two, okay, and tradable permits can exchange, can sell. Okay, for quotas, for license, you cannot buy sell. Okay, there's no market down there. Is everyone clear? Okay, so I will show you in some ways what are some of the licenses going to work. So now let's work with a ban first. Ban is an extreme version of a quota. Very extreme. Okay, it simply tells that there is zero tolerance of a production or consumption of a good. Okay, I put here. So now can you tell me, okay, what is a particular good that is particularly banned in Singapore in consumption or production? Cannot consume or cannot produce. Remember, okay, whenever you want to work out policies, we have to work out, okay, what is the context. Try. What is something that is explicitly banned? Drugs. Crystal methamphetamine. Okay, I hope I got the pronunciation right. So mainly drugs, right? Consumption of drugs, yeah? Okay. So how are we going to work out the ban? Okay, so please join me in drawing because this is not in the book. Okay, so there must be two prerequisites for the ban to happen. Number one, okay, your drawing must start from the y-axis. Y-axis is key. Everything must stick to the y-axis. Okay, later on I'll explain in a short while. Okay, so you also have to have a zero here because a ban tells you that it's going to be zero consumption or zero production. So everything must stick to the y-axis. Number two, the MEC must be huge. Okay, so this is the time when you need a very big foolscap paper. Okay, don't stinge on your foolscap paper. You use too small, you cannot show big MEC. Make sure it is significantly huge. Okay, so now join me in drawing. Okay, so I'm going to start my MPB and MSB from the y-axis, downward sloping. Okay, you may not get this right, and especially if you don't, if you draw a standard one, you'll realize that you'll mess up. Okay, so my suggestion is, if you want to show a huge MEC, you want your marginal private cost to be as gentle as possible. As gentle as possible, You want your marginal social cost to be as steep as possible. Okay, so having said that, okay, let's fill up the gap. Okay, don't look at Mr. Teo. Mr. Teo can draw. Why can Mr. Teo draw easily? Because this is my profession. Okay, but you guys, okay, you probably draw this once or no more than 5 times in your whole A-level career, right? Okay, so please don't belittle drawing. Okay, for band questions, I don't see drawing. Okay, go straight to L1. Now, okay, let's identify the private consumption level, QP, right? Okay, and we can see that because of a particularly steep MSC, you have very huge deadweight loss. Do you see that? Okay, the level of MEC is very huge here. Okay, this is the level of MEC here. Now, let's identify your socially optimal level. QS. Right? So now, how does a band work? Okay, so remember, a band works around a physical boundary. Okay, just like Mr. Teo's physical boundary. Does anybody know what is Mr. Teo's boundary in coaching or tutoring? Any boundaries that you cannot cross Mr. Teo's line? Have or not? or Mr. Teo is a very easy person, right? Anything works, right? Okay, so my professional boundary is integrity. Okay, so if I see if any of you has an integrity issue or lie to me, okay, I will invite you out straight. Okay, I'll refund you all your money. Okay, get out of my program. Okay, so this is my personal boundary. Can? So I see integrity as my number one priority. Okay, but that's besides the point. Okay, so now, what is the boundary here? Okay, so the boundary is at 0. So you see that there is no physical consumption of drugs at 0, right? Okay, so this is your physical boundary. Now let's look out for the relative position of MSB and MSC at 0. So sometimes when you impose a ban, you got to be concerned because a ban, is not at the socially optimal level. You cannot ban a good at the socially optimal level unless the socially optimal level is 0. In this case, there is still some form of there is some form of utility for consuming drug. Some form. MSB equals to MSC is not equals to 0. So look out for where is MSB. This is MSB, right? And this is MSC. Is everyone following me? Yes? So what does this tell you? Your marginal social benefit exceeds your marginal social cost at 0. So do you still recall what are some of the instances where MSB exceeds MSC at 0? Something like positive externalities, right? Underconsumption, right? So we see that when there's underconsumption, there's going to be deadweight loss, right? Okay, so you can see that when you mandate consumption to be at 0, there is going to be underconsumption. Okay, it's the exact reverse from the earlier. Okay, earlier was overconsumption. Okay, so you can use your knowledge on how to shade your deadweight loss or positive externalities here. So what does a production or consumption ban tells us in this case? Okay, so please copy down. Number 1. Okay, a production or a consumption ban is a blunt tool. What do you mean by blunt tool? What do you mean by blunt tool? So for those who have served national service, you probably know that if you want to kill an enemy, there's many ways, right? Okay, you can either use a knife, or you can call for an airstrike. Okay, so in this case, if you want to kill one enemy, this is likened to calling an airstrike or an artillery to kill one enemy. Why? Because there are casualties of war. Which are the casualties? Then you can see here, because of this particular blunt tool, it will necessitate deadweight loss. So now effectively, we are trading the red for the blue. So which one is bigger, red or blue? Which deadweight loss is bigger? Okay, so you can see that the red is significantly bigger than the blue, right? In other words, the deadweight loss before exceeds the after. So from a relative standpoint, the society is better off from a relative standpoint. Because right now I have a smaller deadweight loss as before. But from an absolute standpoint, it's still inefficient. Why? Because there is still deadweight loss. Understand what I'm saying? So when I look at relative, I'm looking at before and after. But if I'm isolating a time period and looking at the effects, then it's going to be inefficient. Because it's still inefficient because it will have deadweight loss. It's unlike a tax. Okay? So, up to here, everybody good? So make sure you're able to illustrate the significance of deadweight loss. So we are trading a big deadweight loss for a small deadweight loss. Big for small. And it's relatively more efficient. Relatively. Not absolutely more efficient. Okay, now, what are some of the limitations of a band? Okay, remember the limitations of a band, okay, hinges around this particular assumption. This particular assumption must be huge. Okay, so later on, okay, if you'd like to try this on your own, you can try a standard diagram, okay, or a small external cause. Then you will see that the blue exceeds the red. Okay, so when the blue exceeds the red, okay, this will result in what? Government failure. Okay, when you intervene, it's going to worsen the problem, right? Using such a blunt tool. Okay, so we can talk about this. What happens if MEC is small? Then blue will exceed the red. Okay, remember, band diagrams are very visual one. Okay, so this is the diagram that I suggest all of you to start adopting right now. Okay? Okay, so the next one, okay, is licenses and quotas. Okay, so I did not share this with the earlier classes, but I just want to talk about this. So earlier on, we talked about a very drastic production or consumption ban, right? Okay, we also can also have physical limitations on production / consumption. So now, okay, I have attached this. I want you all to take a look at this. I'm not sure whether you all can see this or not. I make it bigger, right? So what does this particular, can anybody read, is this Hindi? I'm not sure. Okay, but you can read on the right side. Okay, it tells us that this is the government of Nepal. Okay, it has issued a permit or granted permission for an expedition to be climbing at the Himalayan mountains. Okay, and you can see that it's likely to be Mount Everest, right? So now tell me, why is there a permit that is required to climb Mount Everest? So in other words, does climbing Mount Everest a potential form of negative externalities? Yes or no? Okay, Raj, okay, can you unmute and share with us, okay, why do you think climbing Mount Everest will lead to market failure in the form of negative externalities? Thanks, Raj.
So the tourists, they go onto the mountain, right? Then they will leave stuff behind. They just they'll leave the litter behind, or they will damage the mountain because of their very presence there. Because they will there'll be impact on the environment. Yeah, and let's say you have to set up a base camp, right? That's also gonna be you're gonna be taking away from the natural environment. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Raj. So you can actually see that, okay, there are some potential third-party costs to others in the form of environmental damage. Okay, especially when there are too many mountaineers, okay, heading to base camp. Okay, and recently I've been reading a lot, okay, about Everest, okay, and watching movies about. There's a 2015 movie on Netflix, okay, on Everest. Yeah, so it also highlighted some of the 1996 disaster on Mount Everest. So another potential third-party benefit, okay, is this. Let's say, do y'all think Mr. Teo can climb Mount Everest? Can or not? Can or not? Let's be honest. Let's be honest. I don't penalize you. Yes or no? Or maybe with some training, maybe. No offense, but I don't think anyone can here. Okay, so you can actually see that right now, okay, actually in the May season, the 10th of May is actually the historical best to summit Mount Everest. You can see that there are a lot of expedition team, okay, climbing the Mount Everest. And some of them, okay, they are very recreational or amateur mountaineers, right? So imagine people like Mr. Teo, right? Okay, who has no business in the mountain, suddenly decide, hey, today I want to be on the highest point of the world, right? Then I start to submit Mount Everest. And when I reach the 28,000 feet, okay, which they call the death zone, what happens? Then in that case, you realize that your body start to degenerate, right? You start to think lesser. Why? Lesser oxygen go to, okay, no oxygen cannot think, right? Okay, so for those who serve NS, you realize that wear helmet cannot think. Why? Because helmet deprive you from oxygen. Apparently, so it seems. But you realize that when you start to summit the mountain slowly, okay, who else is going to be affected, okay, as a result of your slow climbing speed? Will anybody else be affected? Okay, people behind, right? Okay, you just go to Google, you can find that there is a long jam, okay, at summiting the mountain. Okay, so not only you're going to create congestion, okay, other people is going to deplete their oxygen, right? Agreed? Okay, and this will put other people's lives at risk. Okay, so you can see that mountaineering itself, okay, especially, okay, in this context, okay, is an economic problem. Okay, there is negative externalities involved. So what does the government respond? A license, right? Agreed? Okay, license to, okay, limit the amount of people on the mountain. You all going to guess how much is the license now? Is it stated here? License is not free, license is paid. I'm not sure about the band part. You can look out for another Netflix show called 14 Pigs. Okay, there are some Nepalese Sherpas they call, okay, that has set a goal for themselves to summit 14 Pigs. Yeah, so one of the climb was during winter. Yeah, I suppose that they are not going to ban locals to climb, just to climb at your own risk. Okay, but you can see that all these licenses one piece costs $65,000 or $65,000. So it's for the Nepalese perspective or government perspective, these are lucrative, okay, tax revenue, license revenue. But do they really have the interest of mountaineers in mind when they issue licenses? That I don't know. Why? Okay, because amateurs can also climb. Right? So long as you pay, you can climb already. Yes? Is it the most efficient way to correct? I also don't know. Okay, because as evident, okay, every year there's people dying on the mountain. So far so good? Understand what I'm saying? Okay, so licenses itself works like a quota. Okay, so for this particular context, if I'm not wrong, okay, the latest amount of climbers is about 500 plus. And can you all do a calculation? 500 times 65,000 is how much to the Nepalese government? Is it a lot? That's excluding the amount of tourist spending. But is it a lot? 65,000 times 500 is how much? Few million, right? Wow, 32.5 million. So I personally think that license in this case is not very useful. Because if you can pay, you can climb. So if I'm the Nepalese government, what would I do? Okay, to prevent people who have no business up there to climb. Okay, I may probably set a standard, right? Okay, only if you have submitted any other 8,000 meter mountains, then you can climb. Okay, you must have track record, right? Yes? Okay, and you also must be socially responsible. Okay, whatever rubbish you bring up, you must bring down. Okay, so this is just a very real life application of how a license works. So I hope none of I wouldn't say none of you, but if any of you intend to submit Everest, please keep me in the loop in the future. Okay, and I'll pray for you. Okay, so this is how license work. Okay, and license exists in many forms. Okay, I just give you an example. Okay. So I am done with L. Okay, licenses and quota exist in two different formats. Total or partial. You can use partial here. And total. Okay, and make sure you put a / consumption because it can also apply for consumption. Right? Now, what about regulation? Regulation is the easiest. I've gone through all the heavy lifting already. E and R is the easiest. Okay, so, okay, what are regulations? Okay, what kind of regulations are we referring to? Okay, do I have the slide for regulation? Oh, down here. Okay, let's deduce the context, right? Okay, we have negative externalities of consumption, negative externalities of production, right? So, okay, a classical illustration for negative externalities of consumption would be smoking, right? Okay, so what kind of regulations exist, okay, for smokers? What sort of regulation? Okay, they must meet 21 years old, right? Is it 21 years old? Yes. What about alcohol consumption? Okay, what kind of regulations are there? Is there age limit? Okay, age limit. Okay, and on top of that, okay, you also have what? Okay, you also have curfew, right? Okay, what do we mean by curfew? Okay, it simply means that, okay, sales and consumption of alcohol is prohibited. Okay, from what time to what time? In Singapore? I ask as if you're all alcoholic, right? Should know, right? And can anybody help me find out? I can't recall because I don't drink. I haven't drank for the past 2 years really. Quite a good lifestyle, right? I think it's 10:30, right? 10:30? 10:30 p.m. Yeah, up to 6 a.m. if I'm not wrong. So, whatever it is, remember, when we have a policy, there will always be ways to circumvent the policy. These are what we call limitations, right? Okay, so always look out for the limitations. I'm not teaching you how to circumvent this tool, okay, because the limitations of this tool is really quite straightforward, right? So smoking, okay, you can smoke at home, drinking, you can also drink at home, right? So long as you do anything but don't get caught, right? Okay, so this is how we call administrative lapse. Okay, you cannot enforce that. Arbitrage, I don't know. Okay, maybe getting someone of a legal age to acquire on your behalf. Is that what you're saying? Maybe. Okay, make sure you have a limitation. Okay, what about negative externalities of production? What is one classical regulation? I don't know this one. Offhand, I don't know. Okay, maybe if we are producing a lot of greenhouse gases, okay, possibly, or maybe steel and wastewater discharge. Steel, right? Okay, maybe you can impose a fine or penalty, okay, for wastewater discharge. Yes. So notice that fine and penalty here works a bit differently from taxes, right? Okay, taxes is a market-oriented policy. Okay, this works like a penalty. Okay, and you have to deduce the limitation for negative externalities, or for discharge of wastewater. Okay, I'll leave the limitation to you. It's really not difficult. Okay, R is one of the easiest. So long as you're focused on this, I forgot. Okay, this is the focus. Fine, penalty, jail. No matter you're a producer or consumer, you will be faced with the same thing. Okay, so emphasize on punitive punishments. Okay, this is what Singapore does best, right? Do you all agree? Okay, and why can Singapore enforce this so well? Why do you think Singapore can enforce this so well? Is it because Singaporeans are law-abiding? Okay, or what? Or maybe too small, the country, easy to manage, right? Okay, I'll leave it to you to think. Focus on these three. Whichever it is, okay, you infringe, you go to fine, penalty, or jail. Okay, so I'm done with a regulation. Education. Education is used exclusively to target info failure. Info failure. Okay, so info failure, okay, you want to focus on underestimation of true cost. So anybody, just do a quick round of recap. Okay, how to differentiate between the two. I've told you all to copy a very important phrase, right? Okay, negative externalities is no, don't care. What about the top one? Care, don't know. So education policies is designed to correct don't know, not don't care. Right? Because people already know but still don't care. So education will have very limited effectiveness here. Clear? So when you propose policies, also propose with the end goal in mind. If you know that the fella know but don't care, then in that case, would you still want to educate the person? No, right? Okay, so classical examples of care don't know would be underestimation of your of the true cost when you consume cigarettes, right? Okay, the actual health risks that you will incur. Okay, so what are the actual health risks that you will incur? Maybe lung cancer, right? Okay, and in that case, what kind of education policies can be used to educate the consumer of the actual risks? Which kind? For smoking, how do we educate? I ask all of you as if all of you are smokers, right? Any of your friends smoking? You don't need to snitch on them. Okay, but just type it out privately. Have or not? Okay, so you can see that the cigarette box itself will tell you that there are some consequences of smoking, right? Okay, some very graphical illustrations. Okay, is to educate the consumer of the actual risk. So the idea behind education is to bring this as close to MPC actual, as close to that as possible. So you eliminate the awareness gap. Everyone will be fully aware. Okay, so it'll be perfect awareness or almost perfect. But honestly, do you all think this works or not? Why? Have you all seen smoke? Have you all seen? Oh, okay, so addiction, habitual goods, right? Okay, I agree. Addiction. Okay, knowing the health consequence doesn't mean that you will kick the habit, right? Huh? Okay, so just a side joke. Okay, have y'all seen any cigarette boxes that don't have the have y'all seen your friends using smoking cigarettes? Okay, that doesn't have the graphical picture on the cigarette box, have or not? Okay, if you ever see them doing that, okay, tell them to be careful. Okay, because all these are what smuggled ones. Okay, smuggled cigarettes that don't pay tax. Yeah, you want to smoke all these, okay, you smoke at home, don't smoke outside. If not, you'll get fined. Oh, vaping. Interesting. Vaping don't have. Personally, I think vaping there's a good chance of coming out. Sorry, suddenly there's a thunder. My dog got triggered. I wanted to protect all your eardrums, You guys can vouch that she can bark very loudly, right? Huh? Oh, vaping, yeah. Vaping is a good direction to look out for, okay, for your promos, A-levels. Okay, I think smoking is an old example. Vaping. Okay, maybe a ban on what's the thing that you used to vape? Vapor, is it? Do they call it vapor? Or anyone can enlighten me, because I don't vape, I don't know. But if you answer, that doesn't mean that you vape lah. Okay, I just assume that you know lah. Is it vapor? Okay lah. We take this offline. Okay, there were no business in vaping. Okay, so with that, okay, we have come to the end of the plier. Finish already. Make sure you also know the limitation of education. Okay, receptiveness, that kind of thing is very easy one. Okay, you can see that. So see this in your school notes. Okay, what are people are not receptive? that kind of thing. Always have a limitation. Okay, so I've completed PLIER, okay, or have recap. Okay, so with that, okay, I'm going to wrap up with a quiz. Okay, so everyone, okay, please join me in the quiz. We can potentially end earlier today. I don't know. We see how. Okay, join me, Oh, vape pen. I didn't know vape pen. And the cartridges, right? They don't use cartridges. Okay. My era of cartridges is limited to game cartridges. I didn't know it exists in vape cartridges. Okay, but it's a very testable topic. I'm one shy. Okay, so not a difficult quiz, but there are some tricky questions to pay attention to, so good luck. Alright, okay, let's go through the questions together. Then, okay, you will prepare for your lecture test, Okay, so I will bring the questions up. Hey, if there are any questions, please let me know. So, the government wish to increase the use of service with positive externalities. Which policy would help? So, we need what? Plier or we need gems? Okay, we need gems, right? Okay, so in this case, it is going to be subsidizing the producers of the service. Okay, S is the most powerful keyword. Okay, so the cost and benefits of producing flood defense, which decision is the best? Okay, so you can see here that the total social cost exceeds the total social benefit. Don't build. Okay, so this is how you want to... Okay, numerical questions are rarely tested, or if not tested at all, but this is an understanding question. Okay, test you on your understanding. Okay, this one will be tested later. Okay, so far I only get every questions have casualties with the exception of the last one, right? So this question will be tested. So there is negative externalities of production. So the question is asking you how much should the size of tax be? The size of the tax should be equivalent to the level of MEC at your production or consumption level. So at Q1, you can see that the gap X and V tells you your MEC. Okay, so this is the size of the text that you should impose. Oh, so this one important. Okay, so a cost benefit is carried out. Okay, it's the same question. So what will lead to the approval? When society benefits exceed society costs, then we build. What is not a possible reason for government failure? Okay, so the only reason there is not a reason for government failure is making accurate level of estimation of MEC. The rest you can see there are some form of lapse in the government aspect. Government don't know what is the information, outdated info. Okay, government fail to make the correct judgment. Government cannot respond. So the other three are areas of information failure, areas of government failure. Did I skip any question? Strange. So a government is considering to allow a leisure company to develop a hotel resort. So the only instance where it's allowed to build will be social benefit must exceed social costs. Why? Why is it not private and private? Because government is concerned about society. Government is not a firm. So which of the policy is not aimed to correct inefficiency in resource allocation? In other words, there must be market failure. Number one, okay, this is what? Carbon emission is negative externalities of production, right? 2, pollution by rivers of private firms. Okay, this is what? Okay, negative externalities as well. Provision of public good. Okay, this is complete market failure. So, okay, requiring firms to pay minimum wages has nothing to do with market failure. In other words, okay, the labor market is operating perfectly. And there's one particular question, I don't know why I missed that out. Oh, did I miss out question 3? Question 3 was the hardest. Okay, 20%. This one, listen carefully. Okay, a food processing firm discharge wastewater into the lake. Next is factory. What would reduce the external cost? Remember, the question is not asking you what would reduce the wastewater discharge. Okay, theoretically, it could reduce the wastewater discharge, but most of the policies that we've seen is not designed to reduce external costs. The external cost will always be there, right? So like for instance, plier, we see that indirect tax. Okay, you're going to impose a tax that's equivalent to the external cost, right? Will the external cost still be there? Still be there, but it's going to be absorbed by producer or consumer. Okay, so now why is C the correct answer? Remember, initially, does the lake belong to the factory? No, right? So if the lake belongs to the factory, would you still pollute? Okay, probably you're not taking good care of your own lake lah. Okay, if that's what is your concern. Okay, so if you still pollute, then probably you're not very good owner lah, Okay, so whatever there is not yours, you don't take care, right? Yes. Okay, so this is the policy that will reduce the external cost. Okay, this will stop the wastewater discharge. Okay, so having said that, we have come to the end of the quiz. So I'm going to give you all 10 minutes break. In this 10 minutes break, I want you to digest whatever that we have gone through, especially tradable permits and indirect tax, because it will be tested. If you have any questions for me, ask me during these 10 minutes. I will answer to your field. Clear? If not, you can go for your break. I'll see you in 10.
Mr. Teo, I got a question.
Hey.
Can you go back to the bands diagram?
Oh yeah, okay. Band. This one.
Yes, I want to ask you, right? So in the actual exam, the way to draw it would be to connect it to the y-axis, right?
Yep, exactly what I've drawn here.
And then how would you differentiate the two externalities?
Production and consumption.
As in like over under consumption. Like, cause here you shade blue, shade red bar, very easy to tell. I'm saying in exam, how do you
Oh,
highlight?
good question. Good question. Use A B C D E F. I
Okay,
use A
can,
B C
can.
D note. Thanks. Later
Alright,
I'll make an announcement. Because you cannot use color in exam.
yeah.
Okay.
That's it. Bye bye.
Hey, thanks. Alright, that's it for your break. When you're back, please turn on your camera. We'll commence with the lecture test. So there is only one extract and one question for this lecture test. Is everyone seeing the same question and the same extract? So during the lecture test, no notes. Okay, no chat GPT, do it by integrity. Yes, can I count on all of you to do it with integrity? Don't know, also do. Okay, and I'm going to give you all 20 minutes. Make sure you have your camera on at all time. Okay, so we'll go through this together at the end of 20 minutes and then we'll call it a day. Yeah? Okay, so see you all in 20. Good luck. Alright, okay, stop writing. So this is the end of your lecture test. Okay, if you'd like to scribble further, you use another colored pen. Okay, so please don't compromise the integrity of this exam. So once you are ready, please prepare your correction. Pen green. Okay, I will run you all through, okay, in person. Okay, what are the expectations of this script? Then we'll call it a day. Or, especially mock exam is tomorrow. Okay, better prepare. Okay, so just to test whether you are human or bots, whether you have disconnected, okay, can you tell me what are the policy options that are seen in the extract? Type it out. Funny, Okay, that I can assure that this is a human answering. Who else? Carbon and tax. What does carbon and tax? You mean carbon tax and carbon trading, right? Okay, so the two policies are carbon tax and cap and trade, which is what I call carbon trading. Okay, so carbon trading itself, okay, I'm just going to have looking up for my highlighter. Carbon tax, okay, and cap and trade. Okay, so these two are the policies involved. Okay, so this one, okay, is which alphabet is this? Carbon tax. Out of the plier, which alphabet is this? Which one? Out of the plier. How to apply? Don't know how to apply. P stands for what? Permits, license and quota, indirect tax, education and regulation, right? So this is likely to be indirect tax. Okay, what about cap and trade? Which alphabet? Okay, permits, tradable permits. So we have gotten the first step out of the window, knowing these two. Okay, I've given you all sufficient hints, okay, especially for my first year students. Okay, these two are the most important ones. Otherwise, okay, positive externalities will be subsidies. So carbon emission is concerned around what kind of problem? Let's look here. So a lot of students, okay, or rather not a lot, okay, especially students who are not familiar, okay, with carbon emission, right? Okay, they will answer from the perspective without externality framework. So check your answers. Okay, have you adopted externality framework? Carbon emission is all centric around what? Okay, negative externalities, and all the more you need externality framework. Externality framework, Okay, FW stands for framework. So now everyone, okay, you can access the answer key. I've actually uploaded into the LMS. All you need to do is just to refresh. Okay, you should be able to see the answer key. Okay, so I'm going to quickly run you through, okay, what is the approach. So I would suggest you all to do a quick introduction first. So what do we mean by introduction? First of all, okay, we need to introduce, okay, how negative externality arises. Okay, so in this case, okay, when we have carbon emission, carbon dioxide emitted from power plants, it is usually a byproduct of generating utilities. That we all agree? So it's a production-based externality. So look out for your answer. If at any point I see consumption, okay, I will take away marks. Okay, so please put here no consumption. This is a production-based negative externalities. Everyone clear? So now, some of the students will actually elaborate on the 6 steps here. Okay, how does negative externalities arise? Anyone expanded on that? Okay, so for those who have expanded on that, then we have to ask ourselves, what is the focus? Okay, is the focus on the problem or the policy itself? So the problem is likely to be addressed in the earlier half. Okay, they're all censored. Okay, therefore, okay, if the question is absent about the problem, don't solve the problem. Okay, just introduce good enough. If the question wants you to elaborate on the problem, they will tell you to do so. Clear? Okay, so quickly illustrate what is a carbon tax and what is a cap and trade, which is carbon trading. And then after that, let's move on to your body paragraph. Okay, your body paragraph 1, carbon tax. Look out for the key bolded phrases. Okay, anytime your key bolded phrases are not there, I will take away marks. Number 1, how much to tax? Okay, it must be equivalent to the external cost. Number 2, okay, what are the effects of tax? Okay, producers will incur a higher cost of production and they will internalize the external cost. Okay, when they produce utilities, when they produce electricity, okay, they will have to internalize the cost of emission. Next, diagram. Diagram is the catch. Okay, students try to get away with the diagram is exceptionally dangerous. Okay, so you want to show me, especially give me a second. Diagram. Okay, so how many of your schools use divergence? Okay, can I have a quick show of hands? Do they use parallel or divergence to illustrate external cost? The first year students, I want to hear from you. First year students. Divergence, yeah? Okay. Just all stick to divergence, All stick to divergence. So you can see that, your MPC curve is going to shift to the left. It's going to cut your MPB at QS, socially optimal level. Okay, so make sure this condition is satisfied. And this will reduce your production to the socially optimal level. Okay, you can correct the initial deadweight loss. Okay, and then limitation, important to state limitation. Okay, so some of the schools, I realize that these days, some of the schools also add in the effectiveness here. Before they talk about the ineffectiveness, you can consider this approach. You can talk about tax being what? Fast to implement. Right, relatively straightforward and fast to implement. But on the flip side, you can see that it may be difficult to determine the level of external cost. So this is how it looks like in words. What happens if you don't determine the correct level of external cost and you impose a tax level that is too high? So you can see that if you impose a tax level that is too high, or if you overestimate the external cost, then you're going to shift your MPC all the way to the black. Oh, I forgot. Earlier on, someone correctly identified that in the exam, we have no access to colors, right? If we cannot use colors, how do we show deadweight loss? Label A, B, C, D, E, F. Very simple labeling. This can apply for most of your, if not all of your deadweight losses. Alright, so you can also label A, B, C, and D, E, F here if you do not have access to colors. So you can show that as a result of overestimating the external cost, it's going to lead to a significant fall in your MPC, and you're going to result in a government failure down here. This is a government failure. A deadweight loss that arises as a result of government intervention. This is what we know as government failure. So let me repeat. Government failure occurs when the government worsens the situation. In other words, allocative efficiency is worsened as a result of intervention. Now I'm going to move on to the next part. So this is all in writing. Please make sure you have all the bolded key terms. Carbon trading. So for carbon trading to work, the government will issue tradable permits to producers that have carbon as byproduct. Okay, what's the purpose of these permits? Okay, it's for exchange, right? Or efficient producers, make sure you profile your producers who have very little emission. Okay, they are incentivized to sell their excess permits for an economic profit. Okay, for I have to wait for my boss to give me clearance. Hey, my boss not happy. I'm not sure why. You heard my boss, right, just now? Yeah, I better close the door before my boss come in. Okay, I managed to trick my boss out. It's quite scary, right? Did y'all hear the sudden outburst of barking? Is it very loud? Yeah, that's why sometimes she can be like, she can be very sweet when she sleep beside you and you're working, but the downside is when you're recording, and then that's not so sweet, right? I don't know how to digitally censor that. I'm not sure. Okay, let's see how. If any one of you knows how to digitally erase that barking, let me know. Huh? Okay, so now my boss want to come in again. Refuse to let her in. Okay, so relatively inefficient producers, what do? Okay, they will have a need for more permits, right? So they have to buy excessive permits. They have to buy the extra permits from the clean firms. So this is a key assumption to make. It only makes sense for them to buy permits if it's cheaper to buy than to pollute, or it's cheaper to buy than to adopt cleaner production means. Okay, so this is the key assumption to make. Give me a second. My nose hurts. Okay, so things to note. Okay, this will force the producers to internalize the external costs. Which type of producers? Okay, firms that are relatively inefficient. Okay, and over time, this will incentivize the dirty firms to adopt a cleaner production means. So this is a key phrase to adopt as well. Why is that so? Because whenever they pay for permits, it's going to drive up production costs. Okay, so you want to create a carrot and a stick environment. Carrot environment in the sense that over time you encourage them to adopt a cleaner production means they can sell their excess permits in the future. That's if they turn greener. Otherwise they'll continue to pay more and more. Okay, next. Okay, you want to illustrate that your MPC curve will shift to the left. Can use the same diagram. Okay, remember to link to the diagram. Link. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes I also get jump scared. Okay, especially when there's thunder. Sudden lightning, very scary one. Okay, I'm more scared than barking than lightning. Alright, so you can see that over time, the government will gradually reduce the amount of tradable permits, such that you can create a low carbon environment and reduce carbon emission. Then over time, the level of external costs may be shrink. Now, limitation. The government may not know what is the best amount of permits to be traded. So you want to state what happens if you issue too much or too little. Issue too much, issue too little, there will be very little limits in circulation. This will drive up production costs excessively. And some of them may become unprofitable and wind down. What are the consequences of winding down? And what happens if you issue too much? Issue too much, your permit cost will be cheap. And when it's too cheap, it simply weakens the resolve and the incentive to cut carbon emission over time. Right? Just pay and pollute lah. Why bother to invest in cleaner technology? Make sense? Alright, so synthesis. So these two policies are oddly they oddly serve the same purpose. They are what we call market-oriented policies. They use the market between exchanges to cut down carbon emission. So it is quite hard to distinguish which one is better. But most of the time you have a contrast. When I have a tax, I have regulation. When I have tax, I have a ban. So you can see that regulation and ban itself, for instance, normally tax is a little bit better because it's more efficient and tax revenue can be collected. That's the key thing. Okay, a lot of things can be done with tax revenue. You can pay off, okay, you can finance regulation, for instance. So in this case, okay, because of the odd nature of these two serving the same, they are addressing the same issue. Okay, so you can consider this synthesis. Overall, whether the effectiveness of these policies is effective or not, okay, you want to talk about the level of knowledge, okay, that the government possess. Okay, knowing the exact level of external cost is important. Optimal level of tax and the permits to issue. Okay, so the government should conduct a thorough cost-benefit analysis on each policies, okay, before implementation, and make sure to contextualize. Why is Singapore the best place? I'm so sorry, I'm blocking it, right? Why is Singapore the best place, okay, to adopt both of them? Small country, okay, so government efficiency level is relatively high. Okay, the level, to be more specific, okay, the intel collection, okay, they would have a good understanding of, okay, the level of external cost because of, okay, this relatively small sample size, okay, and how they collect. Okay, and therefore, okay, you can see that both policies are likely to succeed. Okay, this is one potential synthesis to construct. Otherwise, okay, there's always a contrast between policies. One of them, okay, is likely to be visibly better than the other. Okay, so with this, okay, make sure you take down all your corrections. If not, you can do it at the end. Okay, doesn't matter. I've uploaded the answer key. So the key thing is to use what LHL has mentioned. Do you all know LHL? Okay, LHL stands for our Prime Minister. Okay, the initials of Prime Minister. Make sure you use what he mentioned. Otherwise, you'll lose marks. Okay, so with that, I come to the end of the session. If you have any questions, please stay back and ask me.